You might remember that we talked about muscle contraction a couple weeks ago before we left for break and all the craziness happened. So I wanted to start from scratch and kind of talk about what muscle contraction is and why we need it. That's number one. And then number two, I wanted to talk about the process for it in my first video. So my first video is just going to be parts. My second video is going to be through the process of how this muscle contraction works. So what you're looking at here is an axon. And an axon is really, there's bundles of them in the brain, but they lead down the spine and then eventually go through nerves, which are just axons, to a muscle and touches it. This time around, we're only going to concentrate on the muscle and the neuron. So we're going to call that the neuromuscular junction. And really, what's going to happen is electricity is going to be made by this axon, come down the axon like a wire, and then going to go to these little ends, which are going to be my axon terminals. And usually what happens is there's tons of axons. So let's say here's the brain, and it's going to go down the spine, come down, let's say, the arm, a bunch of different axons touching. So let's say this is the 30th axon that gets activated, and then finally that electricity goes down, and this is the muscle over here, and activates that muscle. We're really only concentrating on that end of it. So here is the end of that neuron. So this is going to be called our neuromuscular junction. And what you're seeing here is the axon terminal. So back up here, we saw these little ends. These are my axon terminals. So now I'm just looking at one of those little bulbs that you're seeing, and that is going to be connected to an axon. So here's my little bulb, here's that axon, and this is going to be the muscle itself. And going back one, you could see that here are the muscles. Here are the axons, the end of the axons, the axon terminals, and you could see that there's a couple over here, a cluster. So if I wanted to pick up an egg, I'm only going to activate one of those because that's going to give me like a light touch. But if I wanted to pick up like a heavy cinder block or a brick, I'm going to activate all of them, and that's going to allow me to pick up the brick. So light touch, I'm only going to maybe activate one. A heavy touch, because I'm picking up something heavy, all of these are going to be activated. So we talked about this being our axon terminal. This is our motor end plate, and this is going to be really just the muscle itself. So muscle, neuron, neuromuscular junction. You can see a gap over here. That's going to be called my synaptic cleft, and the synaptic cleft is going to be the gap between the neuron and the muscle itself, and this is going to allow for some chemicals to flow and sort of come in and out of the muscle. We'll see that soon. Synaptic vesicle. These are going to be little vesicles inside the synapse, synaptic vesicle, and a vesicle is basically just a glorified bag, and that bag is going to hold neurons. So, this bag is going to hold neurotransmitters. And the neurotransmitter we're specifically only going to concentrate on this time is called acetylcholine. Acetylcholine is the only one we're going to concentrate on this time because its really just purpose is to have the muscle contract and then relax. In Unit 4, we'll talk about a whole bunch of other neurotransmitters, and we'll bring those up, but this one is specifically only for muscle, so we'll only concentrate on that one. We have this thing called action potential, and action potential is electricity that comes down the axon, and then as it comes down the axon, it's going to go ahead and activate these little, you can see them here, they're purple. It's called voltage-gated calcium channel. So it's telling me it's a gate or a door that opens when there's a volt, and we know that voltage is really called action potential. And when that gate is opened with electricity, calcium is going to come in. And that calcium is going to sit up here and here like a little cloud. And that calcium is going to come in and touch these vesicles, and we'll learn more about that process soon. And then finally down here we have another door. It's called ligand-gated sodium channel. So ligand is a special biology word that means key. And what's going to happen is the key is going to be this thing called acetylcholine. You'll see it in a minute in our next video. And when acetylcholine, or the key, opens the gate, so acetylcholine is the key, it opens the gate, and sodium is going to come in, and sodium sits around here and here. And when this gate is open, sodium is going to come rushing into the muscle. And when the gate is closing, the sodium will rush out of the muscle. And we get that sodium from food, and we get the calcium that we just talked about in our last slide from bones, which we also get from food to get that calcium in. In our next video, we'll actually talk about that little kit that we did, and we'll talk about these 4 steps: excitation, excitation coupling, contraction, and relaxation. If you could do me a favor and get a piece of paper ready and write down notes for what's happening at each of these steps, it's going to help you, because I'm going to create a homework or discussion page that you're going to be spitting that stuff out, and it'll help you a lot.